Ethan, why aren't you answering my calls? Do you have any idea that Lucas left me standing in the rain again? You always used to come for me right away. On the other end of the line was Sophia Collins's entitled demand. Ethan Hayes, a poor bastard who'd just been dropped into the plot of this trashy romance novel, could only laugh at the familiar lines. I let out a soft chuckle, my voice lazy and cruel. Sophia, my supply of patience and goodwill, it's run out, and it's been permanently discontinued. In the shocked silence that followed, I hung up the phone. The era of Ethan Hayes, the loyal doormat, was over. My era was just beginning. The moment I came to my senses, deafening music and a roar of voices flooded my brain. Ethan Hayes, a modern-day corporate drone who had literally worked himself to death, had been reborn into a novel. I was now the devoted best friend with the same name in this old-school, melodramatic story. Ethan Hayes, the younger son of the Hayes Corporation family, and the eternal backup plan for the female lead, Sophia Collins. Right now, I was in the middle of the book's most iconic, humiliating scene, the engagement party of the century, the event celebrating the merger of Vance Industries and the Collins family fortune. I looked up, my eyes locking on the arrogant face of the story's male lead, Lucas Vance, standing on the stage. He held a microphone, but his gaze swept contemptuously over Sophia, who stood beside him in a magnificent designer gown. Sophia Collins. Lucas's voice, amplified by the speakers, echoed through the grand ballroom, laced with undisguised malice. Did you really think that putting on this dress makes you my wife? Don't kid yourself. You're nothing but a tool my father is using to secure a deal. The room fell dead silent. The color drained from Sophia's face. She clutched the fabric of her skirt, her body trembling slightly. Lucas, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that I don't agree to this engagement. Lucas slammed the microphone onto the floor, the resulting shriek of feedback making everyone wince. The woman I love isn't you. You're not even worthy of shining her shoes. The her he was talking about was his one true love, a struggling actress from a no-name family. To defend his dream girl's honor, Lucas chose this moment, at their engagement party, to utterly demolish Sophia's dignity in the cruelest way possible. A tide of whispers rose from the guests. My God, Lucas Vance is actually calling off the wedding in public. This is a total humiliation for the Collins family. I heard he was in love with someone else. I guess it was true. Sophia stood frozen on the stage, trapped in the spotlight with nowhere to hide. Her eyes were red, brimming with tears that wouldn't fall, her entire body swaying as if she might collapse. According to the original plot, this is the moment where I, the devoted best friend, was supposed to rush the stage. I would take off my tuxedo jacket, gently drape it over her shoulders, and lead her away from this nightmare. Then, I'd throw a few empty threats at Lucas, successfully making myself his new target, the laughingstock of the party, and Sophia's temporary safe harbor. I picked up a glass of champagne from a passing waiter's tray and swirled it gently. Good champagne. Good drama. Why should I go up there and make a fool of myself? Sophia's eyes began to search the crowd frantically. When she spotted me in the corner, her tear-filled gaze instantly lit up with dependence and a plea for help. She was commanding me with her eyes, commanding me, as she had countless times before, to appear at her side and clean up her mess. I met her gaze and slowly raised my glass. A silent toast, just for her. Then, right in front of her, I drained the glass of champagne in one smooth motion. My movements were elegant, my smile ice-cold. Sophia froze. The plea in her eyes slowly turned to confusion, then bewilderment, and finally to an incandescent rage. She couldn't understand why her knight had suddenly refused to move. In the end, it was her father who stormed the stage, his face a thundercloud, and escorted his broken daughter away. As he passed me, Mr. Collins paused for a second, giving me a look of profound disappointment. I ignored it completely. The farce was finally over. I placed my empty glass back on a tray and turned to leave, heading straight home. As for the dozens of missed calls from Sophia, I put my phone on silent and slept like a baby. At 3 a.m, a torrential rain was beating against my window. The phone on my nightstand wouldn't stop vibrating, relentless, desperate summons. Woken from a deep sleep, I felt a surge of irritation. The name flashing on the screen was Sophia Collins. I swiped to answer, but said nothing. Her voice, choked with anger, immediately came through, the sound of pouring rain in the background. "Ethan, why aren't you answering my calls?" Her voice was thick with tears, but also with an unshakable sense of entitlement. "Do you have any idea that Lucas left me standing in the rain again? You always used to come for me right away." Hearing the familiar lines, I found the whole situation absurd. In the original Ethan's memory, this scene had played out countless times. Every single time, one call from her was all it took. No matter the storm, no matter the hour, he would drop everything and drive to her side. His reward was a thank you, and sometimes not even that. She would pour out all her heartbreak and tears to him, and then, when the sun came up, she would go right back to Lucas. The original Ethan was nothing more than her on-call emotional punching bag. "Where the hell are you? Why didn't you come get me?" Sophia shrieked into the phone, her emotions fraying. My absence at the engagement party was still bothering her. And now, I had failed in my duty once again. I let out a soft chuckle and finally spoke. My voice was raw with sleep, but every word was crystal clear and brutally cruel. "Sophia, my supply of patience and goodwill? It's run out." The crying on the other end of the line stopped abruptly. I could picture the stunned look on her face. I continued, twisting the knife slowly, and it's been permanently discontinued. Beep, beep, beep. In her shocked silence, I decisively ended the call. The world was quiet again. I switched my phone to airplane mode, rolled over, and went back to sleep. As for Sophia, she would spend that rainy night experiencing, for the first time, the helpless, miserable feeling of a world without Ethan Hayes. She would wait in the rain for an hour before finally having to call herself an Uber, arriving back at her family's mansion completely soaked. This was just the first payment on the debt she owed the man whose life I now inhabited. And I was just the debt collector. The next day, I walked into the Hayes Corporation headquarters feeling refreshed. The original Ethan was the family's younger son, holding a token title as vice president of the investment division. VP in name only, of course. He had no real power. His daily routine consisted of drinking coffee, scrolling through news feeds, and leaving at 5 on the dot. Everyone in the company knew that the younger Mr. Hayes was never really present. His heart and soul were dedicated to the daughter of the Collins family. I had just sat down in my office when my older brother, Mason, called. "Ethan, what the hell was that yesterday?" Mason's voice was stern. "Mr. Collins called me personally. He said you just stood by and watched while Sophia was humiliated. Do you have any idea how important the Collins family is to us? Our father had passed away years ago, and it was the Collins family who had bailed out the Hayes Corporation during its most difficult time. This was one of the reasons the original Ethan was so devoted to Sophia. He felt he owed her. Mason, we remember the debt we owe the Collins family," I said. "But that doesn't mean I have to sacrifice my own dignity for it. From now on, I'm done with Sophia's drama." There was a moment of silence on the other end. "Did you two have a fight?" "No," I said, leaning back in my chair. "I just came to my senses." "You." Mason started to say something else, but I cut him off. "By the way, that green energy project in the Hudson Yards development, I think there's a problem with it. We should pull out." "What?" Mason's attention was successfully diverted. "We've been pursuing that project for 6 months. Vance Industries is also in the running. We have to win it. Lucas Vance is an idiot. Just because he wants something doesn't mean it's worth having," I said flatly. "I've been looking at a couple of other sectors, AI chips and decentralized web platforms. I think they have more potential." "That's ridiculous." Mason snapped. "Those are just vague buzzwords. Ethan, don't play games with the company." I didn't argue. I knew it would take time and results to make these old-school businessmen accept new ideas. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and began compiling a detailed report on the major tech trends of the next few years. This was my greatest advantage as someone from the future. That afternoon, my assistant, Kevin, knocked and entered, a strange expression on his face. "Mr. Hayes, Ms. Collins is downstairs." I looked up. "I'm not seeing her." "But she said she has to see you. She even brought you lunch," Kevin said, treading carefully. I scoffed. Lunch? Sophia Collins, who had probably never been in a kitchen in her life, was making lunch now, It was just a pathetic attempt to mimic the way I used to dote on her, hoping it would soften me up. Have security escort her out. My tone was flat, without a trace of emotion. If she refuses to leave, call the police and report her for harassing an employee. Kevin stared, speechless. He had probably never seen the easygoing younger Hayes' son be so cold-blooded. Yes, Mr. Hayes. He nodded and backed out of the room. A few minutes later, I saw it from my office window. Sophia being escorted out the front door by 2 security guards. She stood across the street, staring up at my office in disbelief. Even from this distance, I could feel the waves of humiliation and anger radiating off her. The scene must have reminded her of the engagement party, of being abandoned by the entire world. And both times, I was one of the people who had abandoned her. The loss of control was driving her crazy. Sophia's rage soon found its way to Lucas. That evening, I got a call from him. He opened with a condescending question. Ethan, what's your problem? Feeling bold now? You think you can give Sophia the cold shoulder? I toyed with the pen in my hand, amused. Lucas, I don't think what happens between Sophia and me is any of your business, is it? Don't forget, you're just the second son with no real power. Lucas's voice was venomous. You think I can't have you thrown out of your own family's company? I'll be waiting. Tired of his nonsense, I hung up. Lucas's retaliation was swift. The next day, Mason called me into his office. His face was like stone. Ethan, Vance Industries snatched the Hudson Yards project out from under us. He threw a folder onto the desk. Lucas pulled some strings and had the partners terminate our agreement directly. All the time and resources we invested are down the drain. Mason's chest heaved with anger. I told you not to piss off Lucas, Vance. I looked at him, my expression calm. Brother, you don't know yet if this is a blessing or a curse. Mason pointed at me, too furious to speak. From now on, stay out of the investment division. You can spend your time reflecting on what you've done. He was stripping me of my position. Not that I had any real power to begin with. Fine. I nodded and walked out of his office. The entire company was laughing at me. The useless younger son had finally been put in his place for offending Lucas Vance and Sophia Collins. Lucas heard the news quickly and sent me a smug text. See that, Ethan? That's what you get for crossing me. Just be a good little puppy and don't get any ideas above your station. I read it, deleted it, and then dialed a number. Mr. Chun, this is Ethan Hayes. On the other end of the line was David Chun, the founder of one of the country's top AI chip research companies. In my previous life, his company would become an industry titan in 2 years. But right now, he was just another struggling entrepreneur desperate for funding. I'm preparing to invest $50 million of my own money into your company. My condition is a 30% stake. David Chun stopped breathing. He had been running himself ragged, trying to secure a $2 million seed round, only to be dismissed as a fraud by countless investors. And now, someone was offering him $50 million. Mr. Hayes, are you serious? His voice trembled. Of course, I said. I've already drafted the contract. I'll have someone deliver it tomorrow. Also, I need you to use all your resources to complete the development of the Nexus 1 chip within 1 month and schedule a launch event. No problem. Absolutely no problem. David promised, his voice thick with excitement. After hanging up, I looked out the window. Lucas, your game is just getting started. The money I was using was from years of allowances and private investments the original Ethan had accumulated. That money was about to bring me a return of tens or even hundreds of times its value. When that happened, the power structure of the Hayes Corporation would be completely transformed. Lucas was gloating over his victory with the green energy project. He even threw a lavish celebration, inviting the media and hyping up the future of Vance Industries. At the party, he was the man of the hour, his new flame, the actress Maya, on his arm, soaking in the praise. Sophia was there too. She stood in a corner, watching the triumphant Lucas with a complicated expression. After I had her thrown out of my building, she had moped for a few days before starting to reevaluate things. She saw Lucas for the selfish, cold-hearted person he was and began to realize how foolish she had been. She started to miss the way the old Ethan had treated her. That unconditional, always available, put her on a pedestal kind of devotion. But that was gone now. Ethan had changed. He had become someone she didn't even recognize. The change terrified her, but it also made her angry. She convinced herself that Ethan still loved her. He was just trying to teach her a lesson. If she just humbled herself a little, was a bit more proactive, he would go back to the way he was. So, she began a series of clumsy attempts to win me back. She waited outside my office building every day without fail. She sent a variety of expensive gifts, all of which I had my assistant return unopened. She even went to my brother, Mason, for help. Mason was already displeased with me, and her tearful story only convinced him further that I was being unreasonable. Ethan, how long are you going to keep this up? He called me into his office again. Sophia has gone to such lengths. What more do you want? Mason, this is my personal business. What personal business? This affects the relationship between the Hayes and Collins families. Mason slammed his hand on the desk. I'm warning you, go apologize to Sophia right now and fix this. I looked at him and felt a surge of pity. And if I say no, you, Mason was seething. Fine. Ethan, you think you can stand on your own 2 feet now. I'm done with you. Just as the tension between us was about to snap, the office door flew open. My assistant, Kevin, burst in, his face red, so excited he could barely speak. Mr. Hayes, what is so urgent? Mason barked, annoyed at the interruption. It's soaring. Kevin held out his phone, shoving it in my face. Nexus AI. They just launched the Nexus 1 chip. Its performance is a full generation ahead of the international competition. The stock price has multiplied by 20 times overnight. Mason's reprimand died in his throat. He snatched the phone, his eyes glued to the stock chart. The star green line was shooting almost vertically upward. Nexus AI, he mumbled. Isn't that the company you mentioned a while back? Yes, I said, looking at him calmly. I invested $50 million of my own money. Mason's pupils contracted. $50 million multiplied by 20. That was $1 billion. His precious green energy project, even if everything went perfectly, had a projected 3-year profit of maybe $100 or $200 million. In just 1 month, I had created a legend. The office was deathly quiet. Mason stared at me, his eyes filled with shock, confusion, and a hint of fear. For the first time, he realized he didn't know his own brother at all. The Midas of Wall Street. That was the headline the financial news gave me the next day. The name Ethan Hayes echoed through the business world overnight. My status at the Hayes Corporation transformed instantly from the disposable, idle second son to the red-hot center of decision-making. The board called an emergency meeting and voted unanimously to appoint me as the executive CEO of Hayes Corporation, with full authority over the company's investment strategy. Mason sat in the meeting, his face ashen. He knew his time was over. Lucas's attempts to crush me had not only failed, but had, by a twist of fate, become the very stepping stone that launched me to the top. The news of my overnight success hit Lucas and Sophia like a bombshell. Lucas's first reaction was disbelief. He trashed his office, roaring, "Impossible! Absolutely impossible! He's a loser. How could he know anything about investing?" Jealousy and rage gnawed at him like vipers. He couldn't accept that the lapdog he had always looked down on had suddenly soared to a height far above his own. So, he moved on to his next foolish step, a smear campaign. Soon, the internet was flooded with dirt on me. Shocker, the dirty insider trading behind the Hayes Corporation miracle investment exposed. The messy private life of Midas Ethan Hayes, Playboy juggles countless women. All sorts of baseless rumors, accompanied by blurry, photoshopped pictures, were designed to tear me down from my pedestal. When Sophia saw these articles, she was filled with a mix of emotions. On one hand, she didn't believe I was that kind of person. On the other, she felt a sliver of vindictive pleasure. See, Ethan, even if you're successful, you're not perfect. She thought this was her chance to get close to me again, an opportunity to show concern under the guise of clearing my name. She called me. This time I answered. "Ethan, I saw the news online." Her voice sounded sincere. "Don't worry, I know you're not like that. I'll help you set the record straight." "Oh," I chuckled softly. "And how are you planning to do that?" "I can talk to the media, tell them we grew up together, that I know your character better than anyone." "Do you?" My voice was laced with amusement. You know my character best? Then do you know how many times I stood in the rain for you, took a punch for you, cleaned up your messes for you? Sophia was rendered speechless. Every word I said was a slap in the face. Sophia, save your cheap pity. My business is none of your concern. With that, I hung up on her once again. She still thought I was the same Ethan who needed her validation. Pathetic. My response to Lucas's media assault was simple and direct. I called a press conference. Facing a sea of flashing cameras and microphones, I wasn't the least bit intimidated. Regarding the online rumors of insider trading, they are pure slander. On the large screen behind me, a presentation appeared. It was my complete investment thesis, a detailed analysis explaining why I was bullish on AI chips and why I chose Nexus AI. Every data point, every argument was airtight and forward-thinking. The reporters and industry experts in the audience were stunned. This wasn't insider trading. This was a god-tier business instinct. As for my private life, I paused, scanning the room. I think you might find someone else's private life a bit more interesting. The presentation on the screen instantly changed. In its place were photos of Lucas Vance, and with them, evidence of everything. His secret stock manipulation, his hostile takeovers of small companies, and his embezzlement of corporate funds to buy luxury homes for his actress girlfriend. Copies of contracts, bank statements, it was all there clear as day. I have already forwarded copies of all this evidence to the SEC and the police. My voice wasn't loud, but it landed like a bombshell in the conference hall. The room erupted. The press surged forward like sharks that had smelled blood, the camera flashes nearly blinding. The narrative flipped in an instant. Vance Industries' stock plummeted, triggering a trading halt within minutes. Lucas Vance went from a celebrated CEO to a criminal facing prison time. And I, standing on the wreckage of his reputation, saw my own fame and status reach their zenith. Lucas was in a full-blown panic. He called in every favor he had to try and bury the story, but it was no use. The evidence I presented was too complete, too damning. There was no way out. In his desperation, he grasped at one last straw, Sophia Collins. He knew how deeply I had once loved her. He planned to use that love for one final gamble. That night, Lucas showed up at the Collins' mansion, his posture utterly defeated. Gone was his usual arrogance, replaced by a face etched with exhaustion and fear. Sophia, you have to help me, he begged, grabbing her hand, his own trembling. I know I was wrong. I was terrible to you because I was so jealous of Ethan. I was afraid you'd leave me for him. It was a pathetic excuse, one that Sophia would have never believed in the past. But now, looking at the broken man before her, she felt a pang of pity. Everything I did because I love you so much, Lucas said, turning on the waterworks, his eyes welling up. Sophia, you're the only one who can save me. Ethan, I know he still has feelings for you. Go to him. Beg him. If he agrees to drop the charges, I'll do anything. Sophia wavered. She looked at Lucas, then thought of me. The cold, ruthless me. The powerful, untouchable me. A strange thought began to form in her mind. If she could make the new Ethan Hayes come back to her, wouldn't that prove she was more important than Lucas's actress girlfriend, more important than anyone? Wouldn't that make her the ultimate winner? This twisted desire to win overwhelmed her reason. Lucas, what do you want me to do? She asked. A glint of cunning flashed in Lucas's eyes. Hayes Corp is working on a new overseas expansion plan. It's critical for them. I want you to use your history with Ethan to get your hands on the core details of that plan. Once we have it, we can turn the tables on him. He'll not only have to drop the charges, he'll be begging us for a deal. Lucas persuaded her. After this is all over, I'll break up with Maya immediately. We'll have a huge wedding and live happily ever after. Corporate espionage. The words made Sophia's stomach drop. It was illegal, but Lucas's promise was like a sweet poison, tempting her. The chance to become the prestigious Mrs. Vance again, to have Ethan Hayes back at her feet. The temptation was too great. After a night of internal struggle, Sophia agreed. She thought she was being clever, that no one would ever know. She had no idea that every call, every text message between her and Lucas was being monitored by me. From the very beginning, I was the one directing this play. Sophia put her plan into action. She stopped the desperate, clingy act and switched to a smarter approach. Using her father and the pretext of a business collaboration between our two families, she started showing up frequently at the Hayes Corporation. She never brought up our personal history, instead acting professional and poised. In meetings, she would take diligent notes and offer suggestions that sounded insightful. In private, she would casually bring up the past, reminiscing about our childhood together. Her demeanor was humble, her eyes filled with just the right amount of apology and nostalgia. It was all an act that said, "See, I've changed. I know I was wrong." Her acting was far better than that of Lucas's little starlet. Gossip started to spread through the office. "Looks like Ms. Collins and Mr. Hayes are getting back together. They make a handsome couple. They were always meant to be." I knew Mr. Hayes could never really get over her. I paid no attention to any of it. I just watched Sophia's performance with cold amusement, occasionally giving her a glimmer of hope when she got close. For instance, I might accidentally leave a non-sensitive file about overseas market research in the conference room. Sophia would snatch it up like a treasure, secretly taking pictures with her phone. Or when I was on a call, I would intentionally let slip some key information like the European market, a new logistics partner signing the deal next week. Sophia would piece together these fragments, believing she was seeing the whole picture. She grew bolder, more confident. She was convinced that, deep down, Ethan still had no defenses against her. He might say harsh words, but in his heart, he still had a place for her. Finally, on a Friday afternoon, I deliberately left work early, leaving my laptop on my desk, unlocked. On the desktop was a single file named Top Secret, Final Overseas Expansion Plan. Docs. The moment I was gone, Sophia slipped into my office. The hidden camera recorded her every move. She glanced around nervously, then hurried to my desk. With trembling hands, she inserted a flash drive into the laptop and quickly copied the file. The whole process took less than 30 seconds. Once she had it, she yanked out the drive and fled the office. She had no idea that the flash drive was one I'd had Kevin leave in the conference room for her to find, and the document was a suicide note I had spent an hour writing specifically for Lucas Vance. Every word of that overseas expansion plan was a trap. Every data point was poison, and Sophia, my dear helper, had just hand-delivered that poison right to Lucas's doorstep. The fish was on the hook. When Lucas got his hands on the fake overseas expansion plan, he was ecstatic. He never once doubted its authenticity. As far as he was concerned, with Sophia on the job, that lovesick fool Ethan wouldn't have stood a chance. He convened an emergency meeting with his senior executives, working through the night to announce that Vance Industries was shifting its entire strategic focus to the overseas market. He was going to beat Ethan to the punch and conquer the European market. To raise the capital, he went all in. He sold off a massive chunk of the company's real estate, mortgaged every share he could, and even took on high-interest loans from shady lenders. He risked everything, betting the entire company on the beautiful dream I had woven for him. A month later, Vance Industries held a press conference to announce it had successfully signed a deal with Europe's largest logistics provider, officially launching its international expansion. The news caused the company's teetering stock price to miraculously rally. Lucas was beside himself with glee, even boasting to the media. Some people think they can win with a few clever tricks, but real business strategy is built on strength and vision. Ethan Hayes' 15 minutes of fame are almost up. He thought he held the winning hand. He didn't know he was steering the entire Vance Industries at full speed toward a cliff. Another month passed. Lucas's nightmare began. His Europe's largest logistics provider turned out to be a shell corporation that vanished after receiving his first massive payment. The overseas projects he had poured millions into were bleeding money due to unforeseen complications and hostile competition. Back home, because he had drained all the company's capital, his domestic operations collapsed. The final nail in the coffin was the loan sharks, who started showing up to collect their debts. The cash flow dried up instantly. The magnificent tower of Vance Industries crumbled in a matter of days. Bankruptcy, liquidation. Lucas Vance fell from the heavens and landed hard in the mud. He completely broke down. That afternoon, he showed up at the Hayes Corporation building with an equally ashen-faced Sophia. They didn't have an appointment and were stopped by security at the entrance. Then, Under the shocked gazes of everyone on the street, Lucas Vance, the once invincible tycoon, dropped to his knees with a thud. He faced my office window and began to bow his head to the pavement over and over again. Sophia stood beside him, tears streaming down her face, her body shaking like a leaf in an autumn wind. Kevin ran in to tell me while I was reviewing Nexus AI's second quarter earnings report. The numbers were beautiful. Mister, hey, should we let them come up? Kevin asked cautiously. Let them kneel. I didn't even look up from my report. They can wait until my meeting is over. They knelt for 3 hours, from the afternoon until dusk. After my meeting, I took a leisurely elevator ride down to the lobby. It was packed with employees trying to catch a glimpse of the drama. I walked to the entrance and looked at the two pathetic figures kneeling on the sidewalk. Lucas lifted his head, his face a mess of snot and tears, all traces of his former arrogance gone. Ethan, I was wrong. I'm not human. I was blind. He punctuated his words by slapping himself hard across the face. Please, let me go. Let Vance Industries go. Sophia scrambled toward me, crying, trying to grab my sleeve. I sidestepped her. Ethan, it was all my fault. I was out of my mind when I stole your plan. She wept, a picture of pitiful beauty. Please, for my father's sake, for the sake of our past, please save Lucas, save his company. There was again our past. I looked at her for a long, long time. Long enough for the tears to dry on her cheeks. Long enough for Lucas's knees to feel like they were shattering. Finally, I let a look of exhaustion and reluctance cross my face. I looked at Sophia and spoke slowly. Sophia, I used her first name. It was the first time I had called her that since I'd arrived in this world. Her body jolted, and her eyes lit up with a wild, ecstatic hope. For your father's sake, and for the sake of what we used to have. My voice was soft, with a barely perceptible rasp. I can acquire Vance Industries. I'll even give Lucas a position in the new company, so he isn't completely disgraced. But this is the last time. Lucas and Sophia were overjoyed. They looked at me as if I were their savior. They believed that, in the end, I was still the same soft-hearted, sentimental fool. Lucas may have lost his company, but he had saved face. He could even stay on as an executive, dreaming of a future comeback. Sophia breathed a huge sigh of relief, a ridiculous thought even crossing her mind. He really does still love me. She looked at me with that old, familiar expression of entitled dependence. Perfect. This was exactly what I wanted. To lift them up to the pinnacle of hope, only to throw them down again. So hard they would shatter into a million pieces, never to be put back together. The ceremony for the acquisition of Vance Industries by the Hayes Corporation was a massive affair. All the city's media and business elite were in attendance. The ballroom was opulently decorated. Champagne towers glittered, and everyone wore polite plastic smiles. Lucas was dressed in a brand new suit. Though he still looked haggard, he did his best to stand tall. He mingled with the guests, playing the dual role of former chairman and new Hayes executive. Sophia stood gracefully by my side, playing the part of the dealmaker, a triumphant smile on her lips. She believed this was her victory, a testament to her irresistible charm. She would lean in occasionally and whisper to me, Ethan, thank you. I knew you weren't really that cruel. I didn't respond, just maintained a professional smile as I shook hands with the well-wishers. Finally, it was my turn to take the stage as the new chairman. I walked into the spotlight, and the entire room fell silent. All eyes were on me. I started with the usual pleasantries, thanking the guests. Then my tone shifted. Today, I stand here to announce the official acquisition of Vance Industries by the Hayes Corporation. But I want to make one thing perfectly clear. My gaze swept slowly over Lucas and Sophia in the front row. They were still smiling. I did not acquire this company out of mercy. My voice, amplified by the microphone, filled every corner of the room, cold and devoid of all emotion. The atmosphere in the ballroom instantly froze. The smiles on Lucas and Sophia's faces vanished. I did it to settle an old score. I snapped my fingers. The giant LED screen behind me lit up. It wasn't a corporate presentation. It was a video. The first clip showed the original Ethan Hayes on a rainy night, driving his car, frantically searching. A recording of his call with Sophia played over the video. Sophia, where are you? The rain is so heavy, I can't see the road. Ugh, you're so annoying. I'm with my friends. Stop calling. I'll get home by myself later. Then, the sound of her hanging up. But the Ethan in the video kept searching in the rain all night long. The screen changed. A different party. Lucas, holding a glass of wine, arrogantly poured it slowly over the original Ethan's head. Ethan, you're just a dog that follows Sophia around. You get to lick when I tell you to lick. The sound of cruel laughter filled the room. The original Ethan just stood there, silently wiping his face with a napkin. Clip after clip played on the screen. Evidence of every humiliation, every instance of abuse the original Ethan had suffered at the hands of Lucas and Sophia over the years. The insults they took for granted, the moments of quiet suffering they had long forgotten, I was now displaying all of it for the world to see. The room was utterly silent. Everyone was stunned. Lucas's face was the color of ash, his body shaking uncontrollably. Sophia's face was as white as a sheet. She covered her mouth with her hands, unable to believe what she was seeing. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, my cold voice echoed again. Now let's look at something a little more interesting. The screen changed again. This time, it showed all the evidence of Lucas's crimes. The corporate espionage, the market manipulation, the financial fraud, the embezzlement. It ended with the complete, uncut security footage of Sophia sneaking in my office to steal the file. Every piece of evidence pointed to one conclusion, a criminal conviction. I've already submitted a complete package of this evidence to the authorities. I looked down at Lucas, who had collapsed into his chair. Mr. Vance, I announced, each word a hammer blow. You will be spending the rest of your life in prison. As soon as the words left my mouth, the main doors of the ballroom opened. Several uniformed officers walked in, their faces grim, and headed straight for Lucas. The camera flashes were blinding. The reporters, smelling blood, swarmed forward. Mr. Vance, do you have any comment on these allegations? Are you really going to jail? The officers pulled Lucas from his chair. His legs gave out, and he mumbled incoherently, No, it wasn't me. It's fake. It's all fake. The room exploded into chaos. Sophia finally snapped out of her shock. She let out a piercing scream and rushed to the front of the stage. She stared up at me, her beautiful face contorted with rage and disbelief. Ethan, you lied to me, she shrieked. You said you forgave us. I looked down at her complete breakdown, and felt nothing but the cold satisfaction of justice served. I smiled, a smile with no warmth at all. Ms. Collins, I acquired his company for the sole purpose of personally sending him to hell, to avenge the Ethan Hayes you two tormented to death. As for forgiving you, I leaned down, my lips close to her ear, and whispered in a voice only she could hear. From the very first day I woke up in this life, that was never part of the plan. Sophia's body went rigid. Her pupils dilated as she stared at me like I was a monster. You're not Ethan. I am, and I'm not. I straightened up and took the microphone again, my voice returning to its normal volume. My patience expired, and any goodwill between us? You threw that away yourself. In every one of the rainy nights you left me waiting. I paused, preparing the final blow. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you. I'm getting married next week. My gaze went past her, finding a woman standing quietly in the crowd. She was watching me, her eyes gentle and sure. She was Maya Lin, the struggling actress Lucas had so callously discarded. I had found her shortly after my initial investment in Nexus AI. She was a good person, smart, independent, and she knew the value of loyalty. My fiancée is the woman Lucas publicly humiliated for you. Her name is Maya. She's kinder than you, and she knows how to appreciate what she has. My words were the final straw. They broke her completely. Sophia stumbled backward and collapsed onto the floor. The guests stared at her with a mixture of contempt, mockery, and pity. She had become the biggest joke in the city. A foolish woman, played for a fool by her former backup plan, who had personally delivered her lover to prison, only to be told she was inferior to her rival. She finally understood. What she had lost wasn't just a doormat. It was the one person who had once seen her as his entire world. The best version of Ethan Hayes. She finally understood that some people, some chances once lost, are gone forever. She sat on the cold floor, surrounded by flashing cameras and scornful looks, and began to sob. Her cries were harrowing, but they would never again earn anyone's sympathy. I didn't spare her another glance. I walked off the stage, through the chaotic crowd, and went straight to Maya. I held out my hand. She smiled and placed her hand in mine. It was a warm, perfect fit. "Let's go," I said. "Okay," she nodded. We walked out of the ballroom side by side, leaving all the drama and ugliness behind us. The tragic destiny of the original Ethan Hayes was over. The absurd story of Lucas and Sophia had reached its final, pathetic chapter, and I, Ethan Hayes, was finally free of the script. Ahead of me was my own life, a brilliant life with no Sophia in it. End.